I'm Miwa Messer. I'm the producer and host of Poured Over, and I've been waiting to talk to Aimee Nezhukumatathil since 2020 when we picked World of Wonders for our Barnes & Noble Book of the Year, but Poured Over didn't exist then. We were about 6 months away from launching the show, and, well, we were learning lots of things. So, Aimee, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy we get to talk about World of Wonders and the new book, Bite by Bite, which I'm super excited about. And I just want to also let listeners know we might be hitting some of the poetry. We might hit Oceanic as well, which I just reread recently. And I really, really like that collection.
Oh, thank you.
But it's so good to see you, Aimee. And can I ask, Bite by Bite is a little more in the vein of World of Wonders, but not quite. It's a little different. So when did you start writing Bite by Bite?
I kind of started, the beginnings of it were kind of just like maybe the tail end of, well, World of Wonders was already published. I was in that glorious moment of like, I don't know what I'm doing, poems, essays. So I just was writing, notebook stuff, that kind of thing. What I call margin to margin writing. So I'm not working on a line break, but I don't know if it's going to be an essay yet. And I noticed everything I was writing about was about family and food. And I was like, and it kind of in the similar vein to World of Wonders, I did not want to face the tyranny of the line break, is what I call it. So I wanted my sentences to be a mouthful. I wanted them to unfurl like a fern frond. And that's how I knew I was writing essays. But I didn't go into it like, I am going to write about food for my next, project. It was that glorious, I hope everybody who writes has that glorious moment of just, let me see what I'd like to, what I would like to do. I thought I might be doing a children's book, and I still have that on my back burner, but I just didn't know what. And that's kind of the most exciting part, is the discovery.
I get a lot of pleasure out of your work, whether I'm reading your poetry or your essays. I will warn people that they should eat before they start reading Bite by Bite, or at least have snacks handy. I may have done some snacking while I was reading this book.
Good.
I mean, the essays range from lumpia and rambutan and pineapple and sugarcane. And there's also a chapter on risotto from a trip to Switzerland. Like, it's very Aimee. I feel like this book is very you.
It is. And thank you so much. That's exactly what I want it to be. I'm not a chef. I can only be who I am. And anybody who knows me knows I don't have an ounce of pretense. I'm kind of a dork and I just love eating. So it's everything from cinnamon to, this was a great dang risotto I had. And it kind of almost like a little bit life-changing. And I don't know if people say that about risotto, but I did. And I wanted to kind of start and end with love. But I also, didn't want to sugarcoat anything. I talked about some things that were, let's say, to put it mildly, not great with our country's history of how sugar came to this country, or, enslaved people were the ones who actually knew how to propagate vanilla and things like that and make it grow when scientists didn't know. So I definitely didn't shy away from that kind of the dark parts of it, but I hope people take it as a spirit of learning something new. Even if you think you know everything about apples, hopefully there's like a little bit of something.
It really is a journey around the world. We're in upstate New York, we're in Florida, we're in the South, we're just everywhere. And I love that, because one of the reasons I really enjoy reading your work is I always feel like we're looking for home. And even though you've been very settled where you are, you're in Mississippi with your family and you've got a teaching gig there and you are very settled, but the idea that we can still look for home on the page. Home can be place, but it can also be food memories. I mean, famously Proust and his Madeleine.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, and the way you talk about, sleepovers and lumpia, right? So when I was a kid, my grandmother in Tokyo would send us nori, dried seaweed, right? Which you can buy anywhere in the United States.
A snack at the airport.
It was not a snack when I was a kid. And we get really excited because we get these boxes from Tokyo, right?
Yeah, which are amazing in itself. Yeah.
Right. And I should say, of course, it was a snack on the West Coast. I was on the East Coast, though. And, like, we needed the packages from my grandmother because she was our source. And then I was the kid showing up at class with seaweed, a snack.
Yeah, exactly. And
And it didn't make me stop loving seaweed, but there were moments where I was like, can I please just eat my snack and not have a conversation about this? Can I just eat my snack?
Exactly. It's like the bar is so low, and so many of my friends from immigrant parents have kind of similar stories. And that very much I had a similar story as well. But I also didn't want to, and I think those stories are important to be shared, but I also didn't want to end there. I wanted to end with like, it wasn't anything I needed to get over or anything, but it just was like that happened, but I'm over it. I want to showcase like how exuberant the world is. Like it was so hard to come up with just these 40 ingredients or 40 dishes and 40 ingredients. There's still so much out there, but I definitely, and there's definitely important books that talk about kind of the otherness or how the feeling not belonging. And I just wanted a different spin on it for this one. I just wanted to kind of, I wanted to focus on nourishments, not what harmed us, but the nourishment of it all.
Is that how you hit the 40? Because it's a mix of spices and food and fruit.
Yeah.
You even write about onions. There's a whole riff on onions.
Yeah.
Very Aimee.
Yeah. It's I didn't have like I didn't have like a purposeful litmus test. I think I had about 75. And I couldn't say, oh, these are my 40 favorite, but these are the 40 that I had a lot of questions on. And I was just so curious about them the most. So in the same spirit of my previous collection, World of Wonder, those aren't my 30 favorite animals or plants. It's the ones that I hope I will never be an expert in. I always want to learn more about apples or the origins of sugar. And there's still things that I'm confident that we'll know even more things later. But these are the ones where I didn't, because that would be boring. Who wants to know, like, here's the 40 things I'm an expert in and you are not? That's just not the book I wanted. I wanted to make it be kind of contagious, that the reader sees like, look at how extraordinary something like a banana is. What does it make you think of, as well? It might make me think of something else, but I want to hear what these spices and fruits and street food, there's a a sandwich in there, what those make you think of as well.
Yeah, but that gyro story is really sweet. And it's your dad. Your mom was working a lot. Medical field.
Yes.
Long hours. Your dad and you and your sister are just trying to figure out sort of, how to take care of yourselves. It sounds like dad doesn't really cook that much.
Actually, he is an extraordinary cook, but we just loved Fridays on payday. It would be some sort of like fast food kind of thing or a restaurant kind of dish. Yeah. So I definitely don't want to besmirch my dad. He's the one who taught my mom how to make amazing curries and things like that. But in the 80s, for a man in his early 30s to be taking care of two kids that just loved 80s culture and everything, that was kind of rare. I mean, I don't know if you remember that movie, Mr. Mom. That was
I do. Yeah,
that was like, and to make this be a South Asian dad, it was just like, people were like, are you okay? Like, where, is your mom dead? Like, what's going on? Like, it was still a very weird thing, but my dad took it in stride and he had no model for it. I mean, in his family, the women were expected to stay home and take care, and fathers really, didn't have a whole lot to do with their kids. And that's kind of my love essay to him. He was able to figure it out. And I just have such happy memories of that time when it could be very, very sad, but I overall have such happy memories of that time when my dad was just figuring it out, just like with us, like what you said.
But we can also have really happy, fun memories of really simple things, right? And that's one of the things I really appreciate about Bite by Bite. Yeah, you write about a couple of different kinds of bananas, and there's the Watermelon Festival and the Grape Festival. And at the same time, though, it is stuff like having a sandwich with my dad and my sister. And little or moments when one of your sons is quite fond of pineapple.
Yes.
And said, oh, hey, by the way, I have to bring 3 pineapples to school tomorrow. And that sets off a whole nother riff. And it's all of these little moments of actual life.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, maybe I didn't walk up to my mother and say, oh, by the way, I need 3 pineapples for school. But I think every parent has had that moment where their kid says, oh, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not a little by the way, it's a hi. I need a thing.
Yeah. During a blizzard, no less,
Yeah.
yeah.
But your parents and your sons and your husband roll sort of in and out. Your sister rolls in and out through these essays. And it seems like everything is very grounded.
Mm.
It's sort of your family too is nourishment, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just didn't really see, unfortunately, like a few editors before, were like, oh, when I was first turning to essays, we love this, but we needs more trauma. Is anyone in your family addicted to anything? Like they were willing to buy this is World of Wonders. They were willing to take it on if I had some darkness or something that I overcame. And I always remember being like, I'm only addicted to school supplies and fancy soaps, like, but I didn't see that Asian American just joy. And heaven forbid, I actually want to spend time with my kids. And heaven forbid, my husband isn't a hot mess. He's more than capable. Where were those stories? And I saw that modeled with my parents, that they were not dysfunctional in that they very much didn't care. There's no such thing as gender roles for them. Like they just were present as much as they were working. They were also present in all the ways that mattered. And I think I just felt so weird that that wasn't normalized in books or in TVs or movies. So I was like, I'm gonna write it myself. I don't need to hear about crappy husbands, or at least for this book in particular. That's not the story I wanted to write. I wanted my children to not see that they were a burden. That was, if anything, like if I would always want to spend time with them, and it was a joy to spend time with them. It wasn't like checking my watch to see when can I get back to writing or doing something else. I wanted my parents to see that I was listening all along, even if I would sometimes roll my eyes at them. Yeah, I wanted this to begin and end with nourishment.
We're allowed to be teenagers too. I mean,
Absolutely.
My parents always joke, they're like, well, of course you're genetically programmed to love your children. It's the only way anyone survives adolescence. And it's like, yes. Well, okay, yeah, there's that. I mean, but you have a lot of very charming moments throughout the book where you are saying, hey, this is where we are. Like the passage of time is really its own thing in Bite by Bite. And also the essays are not chronological.
That's right. Yeah. It's very much, I wanted it to show, going back to what you said earlier, that was so kind of you to say, that it is not a jet setter's version of the world. Like those are books and they're out there and that's great. But that is not me. And my friends would know, like, Aimee, you get such pleasure out of like a great popsicle or, like a perfectly ripe peach, or a pawpaw. So some of the things are extraordinary. Like, I'm not going to lie, a trip to Hawaii to taste these fruits, of course, is exquisite, but so is the plucking an apple from an orchard.
But that accessibility is really important. And I mean, as I was prepping for this show and going back through old interviews, and you were saying, well, one of the things I wanted people to understand about World of Wonders was that the outside and being out in nature is a very different experience for folks, depending on their background, maybe, can we talk about that for a second? Because I love the idea that you are always focused on what's available and what's possible and what's sort of an arm's length away. Okay, maybe whale sharks are not always an arm's length away, sure. But you understand the point I'm making. I mean, you spend a lot of time in your backyard riffing on birds and your sons, and I think all of that, it's so important to remind us that it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that's such a great observation. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't have the vocabulary for it at all, but I saw that, my mother's a doctor. I'd see how people would talk down to her, like, can you understand English? And I didn't, like, as a sixth grader, I just would get like, my fist would be tight, my shoulders would be tight. I'd be so mad, but I didn't know what to say or do. To see people like talk down to her, like, hello, valedictorian of her class, and, that kind of thing. The one place, the same thing with my dad, the one place where their shoulders relaxed and where they were laughing and joyous and everything was outside, either in their garden, or nobody belittled my parents or told them to go back where they came from when they were outdoors, like in the, they could, I think my folks' neighbors could see, wow, Pa's and Matthew's lawn and rose garden and vegetable garden is the best garden on the entire block. Like, maybe we should learn something from them. And my dad knew all the stars, would take people in the neighborhood to star watching parties and things like that. That was the one place where they were not belittled or questioned their appearance. Also, trees never asked us when we were in family, or cacti never asked us, where are you all from? Where are you all from? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the outdoors was, I know it's not a place of refuge for everybody, but for my family, it very much was so. It was such a place of joy and relief, and where people weren't staring at us. At the same time, I, as the daughter growing up in the 80s, was very aware, like, oh, we're hiking this mountain and there are no brown people here at all. And I don't know if my dad, still to this day, I've never asked him. One of these days I need to ask him, did you notice this? Did you notice you were the only South Asian man pointing out birds and rocks to his sometimes eye-rolling daughters, and not, if he did notice, he didn't care. That was kind of maybe the greatest gift, is that by showing us that he was so comfortable in the outdoors and how exciting it was to learn about birds and rocks and plants and animals that were outside. No matter where we moved, we could always be at home because we knew the names of flowers and trees and how to look at the stars, no matter where, if we were in Phoenix or in Iowa, No, he couldn't always he couldn't always fix whatever happened in school, but the outdoors was kind of our domain. It was kind of our kingdom. But I never saw the only person with black hair I ever saw outside was Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, right? And that's a hard model to follow. Like, Wonder Woman's the only woman with black hair outside. So there was a disconnect. I knew that it was a place of joy and happiness for my family, but why were no Asian Americans in any movies or books just standing, breathing outside? I'd see a ninja, but that's it. So I just was like, I didn't know that this either book would be published, but I just was like, this is my childhood, and I want to make sure that some version of it exists on bookshelves. Because what does that do to a kid who loves the outdoors and never sees anyone brown outside? Or what does that do to a kid who actually has a decent, not perfect, but decent family life, but all you see is how terrible husbands are, or how terrible one parent is, or both parents? You kind of grow up thinking maybe all guys are like this, or maybe my expectations should be so low. Like, I want to show you what could be possible, that kind of thing. And it's not perfect, and I don't want perfection. At least there's some joy to be found, even when all seems terrible outside. There's some joy, there's some warmth. And it doesn't have to be with your blood family. It could be your chosen family too.
And I think, you lived in 5 different places by the time you were 15, and moving for your parents' jobs and your mother's schooling and everything else. But it's a lot of, you were in the desert at one point, you were in upstate New York, you guys were you were in Chicago. So the terrain changes radically. The climate changes radically.
Yeah.
Even what you can find in the grocery store changes, right? I still get excited when I can walk into a grocery store and find things that, star fruit, dragon fruit. Sometimes it's nice to find a thing that isn't just, an orange, although I'm a huge fan of oranges too. You understand, or finding something in season, right? Because the flavor changes. I'm not the only person to say, tomatoes, best eat off the vine in the summer. And it's okay, we can buy them year round, but maybe we shouldn't. I remember being a kid, and I still think of stone fruits as beach fruit, because that's what you took to the beach for snack. And I couldn't separate, because when you're little, you hope the parents bring the thing you actually want to eat.
Yes.
And fruit was always, but of course you've got sand in your fruit, and then you've got the pits, and it's craziness. But I still to this day just think of stone fruits as beach fruit.
Oh, that's so lovely. Me too, actually. Me too. Yeah.
But to separate, it's that we're all sort of 2 or 3 steps away from the natural world because of convenience, right? We can have apples year round. We can have citrus year round. I also remember getting boxes of citrus from an aunt in Florida when we were tiny, because that's just how it worked.
Yeah.
Right? You would get these giant gift boxes, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And you would just eat all of the citrus as quickly as you could. Now it just feels like we're so separate from everything because we can have anything, right?
Yeah, there's a detachment there, and I'm guilty of it as the next person, it's convenient sometimes, but I guess, without I definitely didn't want this book to be finger wagging at anybody, but just as kind of a reminder back to the what could be or what those memories were of, oh, it's apple season, and just what the temperature is, what's around in the air, the clomp, clomp, clomp through a mushy kind of orchard, and the sun dappled. That's the only time I can ever use the word dappled and not roll my eyes. But to be in an orchard and be dappled by the light, it just breaks my heart if we don't have access to that, or if my kids don't have that as memories, So without shaming anybody, because I know that is not possible, and I don't want to look at it as a privilege, like who gets to do that, who doesn't. It should make us angry that we all should have a chance to go to an orchard. We all should be able to pick our own cherries and summer stone fruits and things like that. We should be mad not at me for having had that experience, but we should be mad at our government that not everybody has a chance to do that. From the all the way to the beginning, like getting time off to do it, getting having the availability, the transportation to get there. That should be a given. That's a given in most places except America. We see what happens when we're too detached from anything, from our own food to the outdoors. We're able to not think that there's a connection, which is the biggest lie of all. We dehumanize others. We think, oh, I'll just Instacart my next grocery thing. That's fine. It's no big deal. We don't figure out who's picking what and when and what are those conditions. When there's too much of a detachment, it's easy to think that I did this by myself. I'm making my life for myself. Well, no, it's the biggest lie that media tells us, is that we're pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps. I did this for myself. Even my garden, I don't do by myself. Like I have neighbors and my husband to dig and me to research seeds and things like that. I mean, it's not a one-person show. Nothing is a one-person show. And the reality is, on this planet, no thing is a one-person show or they die. And so I just wanted, instead of pointing and wagging the finger, I wanted to showcase, look at how much really we're connected. And look what happens when we're not connected. We don't get nourished.
And listening to you riff like that, too, brings me back to something you said at the top of the show, which was, we have to also acknowledge that we have a sticky history as a country.
Absolutely.
And enslaved people are part of that story. We can't just walk around and say, well, I found this thing at the A&P and everything's fine, right? Or this is the story I was told about the invention of X, Y, or Z. I mean, it doesn't diminish the thing itself if we know the entire history.
Yeah. People say, oh, why are you focusing on that? It just makes it there's more admiration and appreciation for what we have, but also to realize maybe it makes you compassionate for, people who are not well off because of their grandfathers and great-grandfathers had no other choice but to work on a sugar plantation. So maybe when you're making laws and rules for people who are descendants of enslaved people, maybe you can have, I don't know, compassion. It's more of why would you not want to know the full history of how you get something in your home? That freaks me out. That's so unnatural. So it's just that's a litmus test for me when someone says, I don't want to learn about this past history. That to me is creepy. It's just creepy.
But also, you talk about wonder. I mean, you have a friendship with Ross Gay that I really appreciate. I've not seen the two of you together in real life, but I've read some of the interviews you've done, and it's so charming. And yet, you are both able to talk about also the uncomfortable things. And I think that's really important because obviously he writes quite a lot about joy. You write about all of these pieces come together: love, joy, wonder. But they do also sit in contrast with, some of the reality of what we're living in.
Yeah.
And this idea that wonder can push you to build a set of muscles that are more compassionate and more empathetic. much like reading fiction, right? Like fiction does actually increase empathy. There are actual studies proving this. I love the idea that wonder, right? We all have wonder. As little kids, we all have it. And the question is, what happens to it as we get older? But the idea that you can drive all of this work, whether it's your poetry or the essays, with what is essentially a very childlike honesty and genuine sense of wonder, is really kind of great. My eyes are getting really big as I think about this, because it's just,
I love it.
It's really liberating to think that it's possible to have these things.
Yeah.
And that the unfamiliar can be made familiar.
Absolutely. And it's so great. I love seeing your body language as you're talking about this, because I see you leaning forward, your eyes are enlarging. Like, it just brings me so much happiness to see that. Because it's like the afternoon. I don't know, we might be dragging here. I've got my coffee, but just it's contagious. Like, now I'm leaning forward, and now I want to, I'm so excited. Not that I was, getting sleepy earlier, but I'm just saying that's how humans interact, Miwa. And what I love about what you said is that I want to emphasize too. It's not like I get up like Snow White with bluebirds on my shoulders and, like ooh and ah at the world. It is definitely, that's why it's actually pretty funny. Ross and I have talked about this. If our close friends know this, for me, I'll only speak for myself. I'm a deep overthinker, worrier. I'm sad a lot of the time, that kind of thing. So it is absolutely what you said, a muscle. It is absolutely work to have wonder and astonishment in this world. At the same time, of course, there's a part of it that's been ingrained in me, by my parents. But I'm not going to lie that, all you need to do is scroll the news, and then suddenly all I want to do is hide underneath a weighted blanket, and say, okay, bye. I'm wake me up when it's nicer out, or something. What I would just say to that is, with wonder, with expressing like kind of what you are curious about, it's that muscle of curiosity. I never have to teach kids how to wonder. And it's more of just like remembering what it's like to have curiosity, because in being curious about something and sharing it with somebody, that's a vulnerability. You're admitting to someone, hey, Miwa, I'm not the expert on this, but I would like to know more about sugar, or I would like to know more about how we get pineapples, here. Isn't that more inviting to talk with someone who, and maybe you don't know where pineapples are coming from, or any interesting details about pineapples, other than you can find them at a bodega sometimes, Doesn't that make our interactions just that much more intimate, but also that much more enriching? And that's how it is with humans, I find. Like them, and these people, we won't name names because we're classy, but you talk to writers sometimes who are just know-it-alls. Any subject you want, oh yeah, I know that, or I've heard that, even though it's clear they don't know what they're talking about. As women, I think we probably get the brunt end of that a lot, obviously, where it's so clear they don't know what they're talking about, but they try to bluster but nobody wants to hang out with those people, I don't think. The know-it-alls, I surround myself with people who are curious about other people, other, history, science, architecture. People who are curious, people are who admit that they're not the experts in things, are really the most interesting people. It's scary when those people who are the know-it-alls are then given tasks like to govern or make rules, and they're not asking for help from scientists, or they're not asking help from people who study infrastructure or anything, or social dynamics. That's when we have problems. when we have know-it-alls in life, I would much rather be with the people who are curious about the world.
Well, and curiosity leads you to language, right? Yes. Language is really malleable. It's really flexible. It should evolve, right? We would all sound like, I grew up in Massachusetts, and so I would sound like a crazy Puritan, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If language hadn't evolved, I mean, I would sound like, Goody. Nathaniel Hawthorne was putting words in my mouth. And no disrespect, the man could write, but...
Goody Messer. You'd be known as Goody Messer.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. But this idea that, language is a static thing, and here I am talking to a poet and an essayist, but the idea that you can't find the words to talk, I mean, I was laughing to myself too while you were talking about dappled. I mean, that is not a word that any of us really like, but yes, sometimes it is really super appropriate
Sometimes that's the word.
Right. And so part of what I'm hoping you'll talk about a little bit is that difference in craft between poetry. I think Oceanic is just such a terrific collection. And you can see some of the bits that pop later in World of Wonders. There's some thematic bits, but also like clearly you've been to the Peabody Museum in Boston with
Sure.
all of the glass flowers and which as a child I was like, can we just keep coming back here? Like, what is this? This is wild. And if you have a chance to go, you should. But watching you sort of maneuver through the world in a poem with all of the tyranny of the line breaks, which I still think is a very funny way to describe it, but then having room to roam in an essay, the essays in Bite by Bite are actually shorter than I was expecting. And it felt very deliberate.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the poet jumping out at me too. You know, it is weird. I know for booksellers, they need to have like nice little boxes, but definitely I was absolutely playing around. I mean, I was bringing back some of my poems because there was just ways where I wanted to talk about cherries and a particular experience, and I did it better in a poem, you know, so I brought back, and it's my own poem. So yeah, I'm going to bring that back or a snippet of it back. I guess I would just say both. One of the similarities for me on both essay and poems is that I that's why I can't, I'm so envious of people who can work in coffee houses. I compose, I look like I'm doing this, like chanting a spell. Like I am talking, muttering to myself. I can hear a mistake better than seeing it on a screen, or actually I do most of my composing longhand anyway, but I'm still talking to myself. I just like the way sound snap, crackle, pops on, and how you can change that with what mood you're trying to evoke. So that's something that's both on essay and poetry. I also want to leave the audience wanting a little bit more. I don't want to ever be like, done in the middle of the book and be like, well, that's good. That's a nice taste. I want to like, wait, come on. Are we going to get more pecans? Are we going to get more vanilla later? You know, that kind of thing. That's something that I learned from poetry. I guess what I would also say in terms of craft, but again, it's hard for me to delineate between genres because I think what I would say, this is maybe a craft element. You mentioned it before, and nobody's asked me that, so I'm excited. I definitely did not make this chronological order on purpose because I also think that's not how human memories are, or at least I don't know how anybody that I've met starts like, well, when I was 3, I saw a mobile in my playroom. Then when I was 4, I have a memory of a garden hose and a tomato. Then all the way up to 50 or something. When I look back on all the foods and spices I've consumed, this would be a different book if I started it tomorrow, you know, that kind of thing. But I'm trying to think of sensory details. And that's how I think they're so connected to memories. If I smell mint, I'm always going to think of my mom. Sometimes those memories are going to be from when I was a kid and my mom was around. Sometimes those memories are going to be me missing my mom who lives in Florida, who was texting me earlier. And I was like, no, I'm on a podcast. But that's how I think that's how human memories work. And I wanted that to be replicated in both World of Wonders and Bite, Bite, Bite. So there are definitely wordsmiths, you know, who could do that. I just couldn't do it and keep it interesting. So I really wanted to jump back and forth. And also, my memories of my youth are absolutely informed as me being a mother now, and vice versa. My memories of what I thought I was going to be single and childless are absolutely informed differently now than if I were to, you know, as a married woman, you know, for almost 20 years. I can't separate those out. I swoon at thinking of those days where, gosh, I could fly to New York City on an $80 JetBlue flight back in the day from Buffalo and have a fun weekend and return back to my sleepy little town. Those were so great. As you know, listening to my 5-year-old at the time ask for 3 pineapples. That's also so great. Both of those, not one is better than the other, and I'll never be able to like weight the importance of either of those. All of those things made me who I am, and I wanted to kind of skip around a bit. I wanted to kind of mimic memories in the book.
Well, and I think it is important for us to acknowledge that we all pull from different places, right? Like clearly we pull from our families, whatever that means, or we pull from place. I mean, going from Buffalo to Oxford, Mississippi is, you know, we're just climate alone, right? If we literally just stick to the trees and the grass and the humidity and what the seasons feel like and where snow hits and where it doesn't, at a very basic level, it's like Mars and the moon.
Yeah. Very different. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so to be able to cover all of this terrain, and I mean, your parents' garden in Florida pops up. And when you were a teenager, your mom took a position at an institution upstate that sounds like it was the set of a movie. Or at least the way you describe it. And I don't want to be disrespectful about it, but you have like, and I do want people to sort of experience the whole piece, which is why I'm dancing around it a little bit. But I had a moment of, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you were living in the doctor's quarters, but at the same time, I was like, wow.
Still on the grounds of a hospital. Yeah.
Right. Right. And part of me is saying, well, especially as a teenager, right? Like that becomes part of the narrative.
You can't separate that. The environment absolutely informed who I was. And without giving anything away, that was actually junior high. So that's even worse. So, I didn't have a normal bus stop. I did not live in a normal house. And yet it was the house that everyone wanted to go to because of the unusual location, Yeah, that's definitely informed of like, we couldn't grow things, for example, in our garden. We didn't have a garden then. We had houseplants. But we had to go drive out and pick strawberries or, and find road trips to find these food and fruits that we were not able to be as domestic as we wanted to on the grounds of a hospital. Part of what I wanted to showcase is finding that sense of home without saying, I am now searching for home, and everybody has that story. Even my friends here in Mississippi who born and raised in Mississippi, they're still searching for home. What does that mean? That kind of thing. I think I'm always going to be searching for home all my life. And I don't think that's a bad thing anymore. I think we can inhabit different homes. And it's something that I embrace rather than like before I used to be so sad about it. Like I was always envious of the kids who are like, that's the room I was born in. Or, I watched my brother get born there and we haven't left, And it's fine and beautiful, but I actually am so grateful that I had kind of a nomadic childhood. I'm so, so grateful for it. And more than that, I'm so grateful that I had parents who modeled what it's like to make do with what we had, We don't have a garden, so we're going to find a strawberry patch to pick from, that kind of thing.
But I think also part of finding home, at least for me, is also taking up space.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Like home for me is pretty portable.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of New England in me, but I spent a lot of time in New York and Los Angeles too. And home is just where I am at that moment. And I think too, you talked about this earlier, being Asian American and not necessarily seeing yourself represented somewhere else or, seeing yourself represented in a way where you're like, I'm sorry, where did that come from? I'm sorry, what? I had a lot of what growing up. Yeah. And I really love it when people try to explain stuff to me where I'm like, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, could you repeat yourself?
I really love it when people try to explain things to me where I'm just kind of staring at them and going, okay. Okay. And you know what I'm referring to. But,
absolutely.
And to be able to read you going from, Switzerland and the risotto that blew your mind to, sleepovers when you were a teenager or the cherry and the piece in the cherry orchard was. A lot of us have stories like that. I was right there with you the whole time. But also like the grape festival and the watermelon festival. I mean, just to be in spaces where it's not always expected.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And there is something subversive about it. I think it's subversive that this book is being published, in some ways, because this wasn't the case. I think even 20 years ago, honestly, it would have been like, oh, nice story, pass, that kind of thing. So I'm so glad that I would have loved this book growing up to know that, oh, I'm not a weirdo loving orchards, or I'm not a weirdo being at home in a garden, that kind of thing. Because it did make me feel a little bit like a weirdo, only because it's not on any there's nobody having a crush on it. First of all, on any Asian Americans in movies or books or anything like that. And then there definitely wasn't any positive spin on an Asian American making a flower garden. That would be almost unheard of or just weird or something like. So taking up space at a table where not a whole lot of Asian Americans are in Switzerland at this particular place, and then feeling at home or some semblance of comfort in Hawaii. And yet that's America, but not. That's another kind of taking up space, and also wanting to be respectful of natives. And, because I traveled there as well. That's a different kind of taking up space. But I'm just so grateful to Echo, and for readers for like you, who recognize that this, my husband from Kansas never has to go through this. He was well aware of this before he met me, but if he were to write a book about food and fruit and home, which he could very well do, it hits differently because he's not had to kind of say, hey, I'm here, that kind of thing. Like, I'm here too, that kind of thing.
There's a presumption of outsiderness and alienness that comes with being. I was born in Boston. You were born in Chicago. I've had people ask me, where did I learn to speak English? And I'm like, well, I watched Sesame Street. I watched Sesame Street. I had classmates, my parents.
Exactly.
My neighbors.
Yes.
There is that sort of presumption. And I think we saw a resurgence of it not that long ago. And it seems to be tamping down again. Yeah. But again, I love the fact that you've just grounded us in what's an arm's length away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, like, hey, we're here, we exist. Right. It doesn't have to be like blowing horns and, confetti parades, but it's just like, hey, there's a multitude of stories that involve food. Let's make space at the table for them, not just one certain type of foodie or one certain, you don't need 5 million culinary degrees. That's amazing, but you don't need to have that to just make space around the table for other people to share their stories.
I think there's a joke in here about potlucks, and I think yes. I haven't found it. I do want to point out World of Wonders is out in a really spiff new paperback edition with lots of additional material. There are reading group questions and there are suggested reading lists because you also teach about environmental writing.
Absolutely.
And which I love the idea. Oh, it looks so good. And it's such a great package and the paper is heavy and
it's just beautiful.
I'm really pleased. I'm really, really pleased.
And fun little fact, actually the designers came up with this, but on my request, the holographic foil matches my holographic roller skates that I got when during the pandemic. I've always
remember.
But it's the resurgence of the roller skate back. So that's my little like Aimee stamp on the cover.
I think that's terrific. I do remember your roller skates from lockdown because we were all just kind of like, what is happening in this world? And you were on your roller skates, and I was very happy to see your roller skates.
Oh, that's so good. It was so dorky, but that's the thing that most people remember about that time about my books early on, or about me, is that shows like what state of mind I was in. Talk about wonder and just trying not to cry all the time. I was roller skating in and out of the house. Like, what? It sounds so strange, but that was a weird time. That was a weird time.
And here we are on the other side. To a certain
Barnes
extent.
& Noble was so great about getting this book into so many hands that more than I ever dreamed of, even during lockdown, they made it available. And the workers of Barnes & Noble were essential workers. I always will just be so enamored and grateful to Barnes & Noble for just making sure that this book was available to people at a time that I think everybody just needed something else to look at besides the scariness that we saw on TV.
So here's a question though, and thank you for all of those nice things that you just said, but are you working on more essays? Are you working on poetry? You're taking a little break from teaching, so you have some time that you don't usually get. And I'm very, very curious to know what you might be working on.
Yes, thank you. As academics, we usually get a break about every 7 years. I haven't had a break in 14 years because this is when we moved to Mississippi, that would have been my break year. And I didn't want to say, hey, thanks for hiring me. Now I need a break. I didn't need one. I was so thrilled to be in Mississippi and so happy. But now I have a chance to kind of like do that magical moment again where like what's coming out. I'm going back to poems for right now. But I have some drafts going on kind of these dreamy, ethereal children's books. I always get asked, where's your children's book? Where's your children's book? So by golly, it's been on the back burner for about a decade, and hopefully soon that'll be happening. So I just don't ever want to be in one genre, but I'm a poet at heart, and I'm pretty sure my next collection is going to be back to poems. Yeah, but who knows? Maybe in a year, it might be something completely different. But right now, it's poetry.
I'm very excited. I mean, I'm very excited to see any book with your name on it, but yeah, the poetry, it could be really fun. I was like, wait a minute. I've just reread Oceanic and now I need more. And there are a couple of other chapbooks. I mean, please don't misunderstand me. It's just Oceanic is the one I had handy.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
We're bumping up against time, and I knew this was going to happen because this is what happens when we're having a really, really good time talking about food and family and finding home and all of the things that all of the reasons I read, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking about this on and off throughout the show, which is, keeping us grounded, right? Like, you're not MFK Fisher, and that's okay. MFK Fisher is MFK, and we love MFK Fisher. Yeah. She's very fun to read.
Exactly.
But you're Aimee Nezhukumatathil, and watching how you roam through place and food and taste and memory and time is a treat.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much to me. Yeah, I really wanted this to be, I'm not some jet setter. I am a mom and a wife and a friend and a daughter who just kind of loves food. And I'm just astonished and curious about so many things. And I hope that people get hungry about this when they read this book. And I hope it feels like a friend is talking to them, not some person lecturing. I really was taking stock of what nourishes us, both something that we could touch, taste, and smell, and also the unspoken things that nourish us as well.
You did all of that. But I still need a snack. So I'm going to say thank you so much. It was great to talk to you, Aimee. World of Wonders is out in paperback. Bite by Bite is out in hardcover. Obviously, Oceanic has been out for a minute, and I'm hoping people pick that up as well, too. But thank you so much for the time. This is great.
Oh, thank you, Miwa. This is so fun.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.